Welcome inside this bonus YouTube exclusive of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Piller reacting to Pierre Dorion's end of season press conference that saw injury updates, a plan for the offseason, and when negotiations could start with Josh Norris and Eric Brandstrom. But first, Pillsy, did you find it a little strange that this was happening on a Sunday morning?
Yeah, it was a little strange, Ross, and I didn't even know it was happening till you let me know halfway through, and then I scrambled to get on TSN to start watching it. So it sounds like they tried to sneak this one by, but it was a good press conference with some decent little nuggets thrown in there.
Well, we'll get to all of them, but first, we want to let you know it's going to be a busy week on Locked On Senators, and that's why we want to give you a little bonus YouTube exclusive, bring people towards the YouTube channel as well. We might cut a clip for Monday's Locked On Senators, but playoffs are underway. We have to introduce you to our Sens abroad this year. We have playoffs for the Belleville Senators to get you involved with, and we are going to go player by player over the next few weeks and dissect their seasons as a whole. But let's start with Belleville. Congratulations to them. They'll be playing Arundel in the first round play-in, 2 out of 3. You got to win the first one to really put yourself in a good spot. But they will not have reinforcements coming. Pierre Dorion mentioned today, Jake Sanderson re-injured his wrist. He's got a cast on for the next way too long.
Yeah, and it was his hand that he re-injured, but it's going to be tough for him because it's going to be another 6 weeks, and that's right after he just recovered from that. And it's too bad because we knew he was trying to get back into the NHL for the end of the season, maybe get 1 or 2 games in, so he was working on it. And I guess as he was working on it, it aggravated something and he re-injured it. So he's going to be in a cast for 6 weeks now, which... What a tough season for Jake Sanderson. The season that was supposed to be, I don't want to call it a victory lap, Ross, but sort of, right? Like he could have graduated high school and went on to college if he wanted to, although that's not a very good analogy seeing as he was in college.
Turn pro.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I was trying to say there.
For sure.
So it's tough that he's had this whirlwind of a season where 2 international tournaments don't really go his way at all. He misses a lot of time when he does get back with Nodak. He's injured when they need him most. And now he's trying to get into the NHL and he re-injures himself again. So hopefully now, all right, Jake, you did your best. You tried to get involved in everything. We commend you for that. It was fun following along. But now just get some R&R. Just chill. Just relax, don't injure that hand, and get ready for training camp.
Yes, we will get to who has the wrist injuries. Both wrists, one broken. The injury list coming up later, but I do want to really touch on Jake Sanderson the most. And we should also mention Tyler Boucher. There's something going on personally with his family, so he will not join Belleville. We wish the Boucher family all the best, and hopefully Tyler can come back strong next season. But with Jake Sanderson, you knew he would be pushing to get back. It's that kind of player, that kind of mentality. But Pillsy, his presence offered us our first PR Dorion moment of this press conference. Quote, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but we drafted Carlson and Shabbat, and he's in that category. Is that not the most convoluted sentence you've ever heard?
Yeah, it's definitely putting a lot of pressure on a guy when you put his name alongside the 2 greatest defensemen in franchise history.
On the 9th day, God created Jake Sanderson.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. No kidding. Eh? But you know what? I don't hate it, Ross, because that pressure is on Jake Sanderson. Like from a fan perspective, we need him to come in and be a top 4 defenseman. From a team perspective, they're not going to be able to find a free agent of his stature that can play in the top 4. If anything, they're going to have to trade a lot of assets to acquire one. So, and I don't think Jake Sanderson's blind to all of it. I think he understands where he's at and what he needs to do to help this team, like how important of a piece he is. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he starts when he gets into the fold here next season.
The good news is it should start before next season. Pierre Dorion expects him to be ready for development camp, which should happen about the 2nd or 3rd week of July. Usually the players get drafted and then they head over to their respective clubs for a week of development camp. They'll take in a Red Blacks game. They'll have some fun there. And it would be very important for him to be a part of it as the crown jewel of this system right now. Speaking of crown jewels, Zach Ostapchuk, we'll save him for Monday, but that kid is potentially leading to an 8th seed upset as Vancouver is up on Everett 3-2. They won 11-6 last game. They were down 6-4. We'll get into that on Locked On Senators. We got to stay focused here on Pierre Dorion's end of season press conference, and we appreciate you tuning in to the Locked On Senators YouTube channel. The growth has been huge all season, and we want to continue that momentum into the offseason. Let's stick with injuries, though, Pilsy, before we move on to who won't be back, who we know for sure, and who Pierre Dorion could target this offseason. This is the injury list. We're pulling it up right now. Pilsy, you want to run through this?
Yeah, so we already talked about Jake Sanderson in his hand. Mathieu Joseph, a rib fracture, just devastating. It would have been so nice to have him in the mix and see him build chemistry with the top 6 guys a little more. Shane Pinto, the shoulder injury. Shoulders have been infectious in Sens land here.
And he also said yesterday he was pretty much ready to go. So another unfortunate move, and also unfortunate that he was injured at trade deadline. You cannot put an injured player on the AHL roster if they were hurt in an NHL game. So even if he was able to play for Belleville in the playoffs, this dumb rule doesn't allow it.
Yeah, and that'd be too bad because Shane Pinto would absolutely dominate down there as a number 1 centerman. That's for damn sure. And then Brady, we all knew he had problems with his hand. I mean, anytime you saw a picture of him in the dressing room, you saw that kind of not a cast, but the taping. And they were obviously working and he wasn't fighting. And when he was only using one hand. He still had his glove on. So it was a glove on, glove off kind of fight.
Who was? It was the guy on Nashville, right? Lauzon. And they're in the penalty box. And he's like, dude, I can't take my glove off.
Yeah, so Brady, and that's just scratching the surface. He's had knee issues, back issues, so he was battling, and that's what you expect from your captain. And he got to 30 goals, so I think for him that'll be worth it, and he's going to rest up here. He won't be playing internationally, which I think is smart. I mean, Brady doesn't need to do that. He deserves the break.
Brady Tkachuk's hands certainly look good on that wrister from the top of the dot, from Norris's office.
Yeah, maybe not rough hands, but soft hands for Brady Tkachuk right there.
Hey, take your best friend to work day, as Josh Norris allowed Brady into his office on that goal. Now, Connor Brown, talk about resilience. This guy played through a broken jaw and had a goal and an assist earlier in the season. Now he's got a broken wrist, and both of his wrists are mangled, which, if you understand the amount of chances he got on the penalty kill but couldn't convert, now it happened a bit last year at the start of the year too before he got red hot, but I think that's probably a part of the reason for his goal scoring struggles versus leading this team in goals last year.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that's the thing, like at the end of the season when you see these injuries, you start to give guys a little bit of slack here because hey, they're playing through injuries. I mean, the Senators, like some of these guys, like they're probably hurt, but the Sens are like, look, like we are running out of options. Like, are you able to play? Like, can you finish the season out for us? So that's definitely something that you have to take into consideration. Now, Matt Murray, we know he's had injury struggles all season long, and this is a tough thing, Ross, because concussions are so tricky, and you can have a concussion and you can recover quickly, or you can have a concussion and it can linger and not only affect your play on the ice, but your day-to-day life, like just getting up in the morning, having too bright of lights on, all these kinds of things. Like it's insane what it can do. So I think people need to give Matt Murray a little bit of respect for what he's been dealing with, because a concussion, that's not easy, and it sounds like he's had multiple of them, and it's a reoccurring thing for him at a young age, unfortunately.
He's going to be staying in Ottawa with team doctors through the offseason. I know Martian in the last postcast was wondering which players would stay in town. Probably not under the circumstances that Murray would have liked, but let's hope he bounces back, because there was a stretch there where he was unreal when he got back from a later injury. Remember how he got hurt too? Nikita Zaitsev just smoked him.
Yeah.
Brutal. That's a story for Locked On Senators. I cannot wait to do his year in review. It's going to be scathing. You're going to want to get your popcorn ready. I might go full Stephen A. Smith for that one. Colin White still dealing with lingering effects from COVID. Clearly not contagious anymore because there's a photo of him with Shane Pinto arm in arm the other night. But I guess he tried to push it on the ice and wasn't able to. This is a conversation that will continue in the offseason, though. What's best for him going forward, or best for the organization with him going forward, because I think a buyout could be coming there. And then Tyler Ennis still dealing with a shoulder. You mentioned shoulder, a recurring injury throughout this season for the Ottawa Senators, Josh Norris being the other one who recovered from it. But that leads us to the next phase of Pierre Dorion's press conference, where he said, not only will Tyler Ennis, I'm going to really miss saying that, he will not be back, nor will Chris Tierney, hold your applause, and Victor Mete will not be qualified. He is a restricted free agent, not anymore. He can pick wherever. We'll have him.
Yeah, and I mean, neither of these are really a shock. Even like the Sens, it's so funny that the Sens have leverage over Mete, and they're just like, yeah, nah, like we're good. Yeah, so but good for Mete. He's going to get an opportunity somewhere else, and you just know, like with him and Brandy here, there's only room for one of them, and you know it's going to be Brandy. So that was an obvious one.
Nice little transition play there, Pillsy, because Pierre Dorion called Erik Brannstrom the most improved defenseman on this team. That's going to be music to everyday Sens and some other guys who absolutely adore Erik Brannstrom. Still 0 goals on the year, and that, sure, defenseman, say what you want. Travis Hamonic scored one with Ottawa, but that being said, Erik Brannstrom certainly showed that he can move pucks on the power play. That's definitely where his value was most shown, but you can't have Mete and Brannstrom in the same lineup. You just can't. And I'm not like a caveman who comes out and says you need to have Gabranson and Coburn and all these other guys with size. I like to have a bit of size on the back end. Like, I'm glad Holden's there and Hamonic as well, but you can have one for sure, especially when you have some other smooth skaters. Now, where do you think that negotiation will go? Because it sounded like Pierre Dorion has already opened negotiations with Erik Brannstrom.
From my impression, Ross, it seems like the Senators, Pierre Dorion, and the Sens are going to look to get a couple years on Brannstrom here. Like, I don't think this will be just a 1-year settlement and let's move on from there. I think they're probably hoping to bank on potential. Like he said it, he's been the most improved defenseman in their eyes. So they're probably going to try to get him at cheap at a 2 or 3 year deal. And they have the leverage here. This is how it works. When players are young, the team has the leverage. When the players hit UFA status, they have the leverage. So you got to use it when you got it.
Yeah, not only that, right now, he's 1 year away from arbitration.
Yeah.
So if you're the Senators, why not try to make it a 3-year deal? And then it brings you to that final year of restricted free agency where you can have arbitration. And at that point, you know what he's going to be,
Exactly.
right? Because his entry-level deal slid for 2 seasons, you're looking at a guy who's already 22 years old. So you sign him to a three-year deal further. Then you have a deal, whether or not you're going to sign him to a 4x3 at that point, whatever it is. I think that right now, what do you think? A 3-year, $6 million, so two AAV. I think that's probably pretty fair on both sides.
Yeah, I would look at something like that. I don't know if Branny and his agent would go for that, especially knowing that he's with a new agent now, and he obviously has things that he's taking a look at here, and he wasn't happy with before. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, I would say a 3-year, $2 million AAV would make a lot of sense.
Between 2 and 3 million. I mean, I don't think he's going to break the bank if you're paying him 2.5, but at the same time, he might look at it and be like, okay, I don't really have any leverage right now. I just got the most opportunity I've ever had. I did okay. I did decent. Did okay. Did decent, sure. But if I go back and DJ Smith, let's say he signs a 1-year deal and DJ Smith doesn't play him, his value's not going up.
Nope.
So sure, he'll have arbitration, but then the numbers will be deflated from what they were this year. So that's going to be really interesting. And another topic that we will dissect in full. We want to give you an overview on everything here in under 20 minutes. So Josh Norris, before we get to what Pierre Dorion said, Josh Norris spoke yesterday, and this guy wants a deal done right now. He does not want to wait through the offseason, and nor should the Sens, based on how they lost the first 3 games of Brady. getting himself reacclimated, and then it took him a while to get going from there.
Yep.
If you had second half Brady at the start of this season, it's a different team. They're not a playoff team, but they're a different team. So how do you open negotiations with a guy who just scored 35?
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough. But I really think if the Senators have an opportunity to lock him up long term, like 6-7 years, you have to do that. Like if you can sit there and you're the Senators management and you say, okay, we got Thomas Chabot locked up long term, Brady Tkachuk locked up long term, Batherson long term, and Norris. You're at a point now, like obviously Tim Stützle is the next big one that's got to fall, and then Jake Sanderson will come after that. But you're at a point where you at least have a core and you can build around them for a long period of time. And that's so massive, not only for the fans, not only for ownership and management and everything, but for the players. Because if, like Dorion talked about it, it's not always easy to convince guys to come to Ottawa, especially when it's been years of losing. But when you can be like, hey, we're done with the losing. We've got our core guys locked up. You can be an addition to this core. That's much more enticing if you're a player that's possibly being traded there and you need to waive a no-move clause or a free agent or anything like that. It's much more enticing when you've got a group of guys that you know are settled there.
Yeah, no question. Now, Josh Norris missed a lot of time this year, right?
Yeah.
A lot of time. Now, I'm just pulling it up right now on our YouTube channel. This is producing on the fly if I've ever seen it before. He played 30 games since returning from injury, Pillsy. 17 goals in 30 games, 29 points, averaging 18.5 per game. Now, we know how much of his damage he does on the power play. 15 of his 29 points, over half of them, including 9 of his 17 goals being on the power play. Now, that's a skill in itself, but I think people get paid more for even strength production than power play. How much does Pierre Dorion have to factor into the negotiation that for a lot of Norris's next contract, Tim Stützle is likely going to be the number one center?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I don't know if I'm on the same side of the argument as you, though, because sure, obviously, with the man advantage, you're getting cheaper goals. But the thing is with Josh Norris, it's not like he's getting a lucky deflection or he's getting a point shot or anything like that. It's what we talk about with Steven Stamkos and Alex Ovechkin. Everybody knows they're going to go there and they still go there and they still succeed. You have I think that adds more value than a guy that's just able to dominate with more room on the ice and with the man advantage. Like, because even strength, he can set up in that spot and he's going to dominate in that spot too. So I think if you're the Sens, you need Josh Norris and his power play production, and I don't think you're going to devalue it that much.
Pills, are you ready for a stat? I got a stat for you.
Hit me.
For NHL players since 2010, okay? Can I even bring it back to 05? Will it be the same? Ooh, Anson Carter sneaks in there. Okay. Let's do from 05-06, okay? From 05-06, Josh Norris right now has the third best shooting percentage in the NHL. Since 05-06.
Wow. Yep.
He's shooting 18.8%. The only players who have a higher shooting percentage, Anson Carter in 145 games shot 20.4%, thanks to the Sedins. And Ivan Barbashev is shooting 19.2%. And Barbashev has 16 more goals than Norris in 220 more games.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable list to be on. You know what? I'm going to even screenshot it because this is unbelievable. And I think if I'm Pierre Dorion, I go, look, like, yes, it's incredible, but I don't know if it's sustainable.
But he's a shoot first center with an incredible shot. So sure.
He's got a better shooting percentage than Leon Draisaitl.
But will it go down? Probably. But is it going to go down drastically? I don't think so. Like, I think you're probably going to go up or down a couple percent from that every season, right? Like, we're not going to see Josh Norris with a 10% shooting success rate. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. And he's going to get better over time. So, and you mentioned the fact that Timmy eventually will pass him as a number one center. I think if you get Josh Norris in that Nick Suzuki type contract range, that's okay to have a second line center making that amount of money, especially if hopefully the cap continues to go up, you're going to be able to work that. And especially when you look at the value you're getting in Drake Batherson's contract, that's all right. So I'm not too worried about it from that sense, but they got to lock Norris up. And I think Norris has been in talks with Brady, and they know what they're building here, and they got the same agent, so they know how to approach things this time.
22 of his 52 career goals are on the power play. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's something. And this is a surprising stat, like to a degree, is it not?
I mean, it's surprising that he's this high up. Yeah, definitely. The fact that he's so successful shooting is not a surprise.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we'll get more into that. I'm sure we'll dissect what Josh Norris's contract. I don't know if you saw in the Ottawa Sun, a certain writer said plenty of media types in Ottawa will tell you exactly what Josh Norris should make, and they don't have a clue, even though we're a professional podcast. So we're just doing what we can here on a Sunday when Pierre Dorion had his press conference, season-ending press conference, and he had a couple other notes we want to react to. Pilsy, not only will Thomas Chabot and Drake Batherson be available for Coach DJ Smith, assistant coach DJ Smith, for Team Canada at the World Championships, but Team USA is adding a pair. They struck out on Josh Norris and Brady Tkachuk, so they went with the next best thing. Adam Gaudette and Austin Watson will be playing at the World Championships in Helsinki.
I love this for Adam Gaudette because this is a guy that just needs chances and he needs opportunity, and he's
best opportunity of his life. Could it be?
Yeah, it could be. And he's confident in his ability, so I think that's good for him. And then Austin Watson, I mean, this guy's got 10 goals on the season. He lit it up in the second half, and
lit it up.
You need, even though I think what the problem is with these international tournaments is people just are like, let's get 4 first lines.
Right.
Like, let's get 4 lines where everybody can score and everybody's a playmaker. Cool, but what happens when you're trying to defend your zone? What happens when other teams get physical? What happens when you need shots blocked and guys on the 4th line are like, no, I'm making 6 sheets in the NHL. I'm not blocking a shot over here in Czech Republic like during the summer. I'm not doing that. So you need guys like Austin Watson there. And I think it's a great opportunity for Watson too, as he's done a lot of growing as a player, as a person. So I think he deserves this opportunity. So I'm fired up about them.
Yo, no question. 7 goals and 11 points in Austin Watson's last 19 games of the season.
Yeah, not bad.
Shooting at 24%. How are you? But hey, he brings so much more than offense. Obviously, we say that tongue in cheek, but I think that it's fantastic that he's going over there. World Championships start on May 10th, same day as the NHL Draft Lottery. You know that we're going to be your home for that Monday through Friday, in the lead up, in the dissection of it when it comes and goes on May 10th. The NHL Draft is still 2.5 months, almost 3 months away, but Locked On Senators will be here Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we'll have some bonus YouTube coverage just like this one. Pilsy, what else stood out to you from Pierre Dorion's end of season press conference?
I think it was interesting to see him work his way around when he was asked what he thought about the draft, right? Because he said, well, there's not a lot of first line talent. There's not a lot of number 1 defensemen, but there's a lot of your middle 6 guys and 2, 3, 4 defensemen available and stuff like that. So take that quote and put it beside him saying, we need quality players. We can't just be adding character veterans. We can't be adding more picks and prospects. I think it's written, like the writing's on the wall, that they're going to use that pick to try to acquire a talented elite player, whether it's a defenseman or a top 6 winger, because they can't just have, and we love Tyler Boucher, but they can't just pick another guy like that in the top 10, because by the time he's ready, they're already needing to be successful. They need guys now. And I liked how he talked with Thomas Chabot and said they had chats knowing the type of players they need, and that they need to move forward here and they need to start winning. So that gave me at least some relief, knowing that they're not just like, oh yeah, we love the picks, like we're going to get great prospects, et cetera, because they're done with that. They have the great prospects. They're most of them are already in the NHL thriving. Jake Sanderson's coming up. Like, you only have so much space for these prospects. They need to start using those assets to acquire, pooling them together to acquire real talent. And it sounds like that's going to be the goal this offseason.
Well, the key is, what is a quality veteran? Because I'm pretty sure he said that about Erica Branson. I'm pretty sure he said that about Derek Stepan. I'm pretty sure he said that about Evgeny Dadonov.
Yeah.
I don't need a good veteran who's 34 years old. We need a good veteran who's 25, 26, 27, and who
Yeah.
could come in. Like, look at Boston. They were in a different situation. They're not coming out of a rebuild. They're more like, how do we extend our window with guys getting older, Krejci, Chara leaving? They go out and get Taylor Hall. Like that type of player, an age conducive player who's going to make money, and that's why they have to pay. And I think that we'll have to put together a list, go through everyone's team of guys who could be available and guys who won't be, but the type of player that the Ottawa Senators need. That'll come up going into free agency and maybe even before that here on Locked On Senators. Now, we mentioned that quote, obviously, really got Sens fans up in arms, where it's like, okay, what is a quality veteran? Because we've seen you try before. Do I have the list right now? I probably Oh, I thought I still had it up. Pierre Dorion acquiring NHL players. It's not a good one.
No.
Maybe Restream just took it away. They're like, nope, Pierre Dorion doesn't want people to see this anymore. But the bottom line is he needs to do better than he's did at identifying which players need to come in. But if they find the right player, I'm all for trading 7th, 8th, or 9th overall. If it's 1 or 2,
Yeah.
they're not going to trade it, nor should they. Draft best player available, put him into the system. They can probably help sooner rather than later. But Pilsy, what did you make of probably the most quotable thing he said was, we will spend to the cap when we sell out 41 home games? Doesn't that seem like such a shot at the fans for no reason at all?
Yeah, it's crazy, Ross. That almost seems like a direct Mr. Melnick quote, doesn't it? Like, that's
Yep.
same vibes as outdoor game. Yeah, we might move this team if people don't come out. When you're hosting an event and there's fans all around you, I don't know. That was a weird one. But fans, you can be frustrated. You can say that's absolute crap, and I'm with you. But at the end of the day, this is a business,
For sure.
and if you're going to spend money, you want to make sure you can make money. And the
But
Sens
isn't it usually, sorry to interrupt, isn't it usually on the company to build something that fans want to go spend their money at, rather than the other way around? Like, if you build it, they will come. It's not if you come, they will build it.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? But I think they feel they're at a spot where they've built an entertaining product and they've built a team that fans can rally around, and I would agree with them. But
Once
the issue
Nikita
is
Zaitsev's gone, I'll agree.
the issue is the injuries. Like, they haven't been able to put it all together here. So, you know what? Like, I understand where he's coming from. Not a great way to say it. I think you would have liked to say it a different way, but
Story of his press conference career.
this team, like, think about it through COVID times. Like, think of all the money they've lost,
Right.
and think, so spending to the cap is not going to be an easy thing. But the thing is, why are we even talking about spending to the cap? These Senators are like last year, if Brady Tkachuk doesn't sign his contract, they're not even at the goddamn floor.
Remember, we celebrated Ennis's $900,000 deal
Yeah.
because it put them over the cap floor. Now, obviously, Norris's contract's going to be there, but if they can move Zaitsev, they're out of Tierney's 3.5 AAV. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Matt Murray. Of course, his salary's way more than the cap, but if they buy out Colin White, like, they're losing a lot of
Yeah.
expenditures this offseason.
That's the thing. We're not even close to talking about reaching the salary cap ceiling. So why are we even getting into this? Why are we stirring up the
We
dust?
just want a good player.
Yeah.
The cap, it's like the Jim Morris speech, like playoffs, like the cap. We just want to be in single digits away from it.
Honestly, yeah. So that's the thing. And the Senators, they need to use that cap space as an advantage right now. So I don't think spending to the cap is not even close to what I'm worried about right now.
Yeah. Well, how about, I mean, the parrot from the Ottawa Sun would say, like, oh, they have to save their money to sign this if they win the draft lottery. It's like, oh, they can't spend money because they're going to have to sign that second round pick once they make the NHL and then play 3 seasons. They're going to have to save money for him. It's like, come on, man. Come on. We just want to see. And Michael Whitford, who's a listener in the show, Sens Central Citizen, Michael, he commented on the tweet from 1200 saying, won't be spending to the cap unless we sell it all 41. Like, have you watched the Jays?
Yeah.
Nobody shows up when they don't spend. And then they added all these players for hundreds of millions. Now, comparison is obviously different in baseball, but they spent the money, and now the barn sells out every damn game. It's pretty easy to know what has to come first. This is not a chicken or the egg. This is build it, they will come.
But also, you got to be careful, because if you remember, and they're talking about this on 32 Thoughts podcast, when Buffalo, at the start of this terrible time, the owners just said, you know what, we're just going to spend a crap load of money. They bought all the free agents, and I'm blanking on the name, but
Who's that?
Vinny.
Who are you talking about?
The Buffalo Sabres. They had a free agent year where they just spent way
Ville
too much
Heinola.
No.
Ville Leno.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And they gave him a massive contract. I think Christian Ehrhoff, like all these guys, they just threw so much money at, and then they're like to the fans, see, we're spending money. You like this? You like this?
Spend smart money.
Exactly.
They gave Gabranson $4 million, or they took on his contract. Like, they could have reallocated that for different.
But it's spending smart money at the right time, Ross. Ooh. Because spending money and bringing all these players in when you're not ready, cool. You've got yourself a Minnesota Wild of the last 10 years where they make round one of the playoffs and that's it, and you just repeat that cycle for a decade. That the Senators are waiting, they're biding their time. Hopefully, this is what I'm hoping. I don't know if it's true or not. They're biding their time to find the right opportunity, and then they're going to go for it. And this is that time. Like, now is the time, because you need to take advantage of a couple entry-level deals. The only way you can get it all together is by capitalizing on entry-level deals. With Timmy still on an ELC, Jake Sanderson's going to be on an ELC. That's how you got to try to work the system, and that's when you make those moves. And now's the off season to do it. So they got to put their money where their mouth is, and then maybe we can talk about selling out 41 home games.
Before we get to all that, we're going to enjoy a Belleville Sens playoff push. They begin their quest for the Calder Cup against Aaron Dell and the Rochester Americans. Game 1 goes Wednesday, May 4th in Rochester, and then they'll be back home on Friday for Game 2, and then, if necessary, at home for Game 3. So even though they're the higher seed, they start at the road, then they come home for Games 2 and 3 if necessary. But it is going to be a very fun push for them down in Belleville. We'll have more on that tomorrow. We'll have our playoff predictions as the NHL Stanley Cup playoff gets underway tomorrow, and we will introduce you to our Sens abroad. Whole lot coming up on Locked On Senators. Pilsy, your final thoughts before we go on this overall press conference from Pierre Dorion.
I mean, it was a classic Pierre Dorion press conference. A lot of things you're scratching your head at. A lot of things you're just like, oh boy, like classic Pierre here. But he did give a lot of information we weren't aware of with all the injury updates, so that was good. He did kind of reflect on what contracts he's going to be focusing on, which ones they're not going to be focusing on. And I think the big thing for me, Ross, was him not coming out with these crazy statements about the draft, right? Like, yes. If he would have been like, we're going to select a top player in the draft and draft, I would have been very disappointed, because we're done with the draft. The draft is just a little cherry on top. Well, not even a cherry on, it's like a cherry on top.
It's the whipped cream. It's the whipped cream.
Yeah, but like not of like a nice dessert of like 3-year-old bagels, and there's whipped cream on top of them, and he says, look, now it's nice, we got a draft pick. It's putting lipstick on a pig, Ross, you know that. So we can't, we're done with focusing on the draft as being the shining light of hope. We've used all that up. Now let's get a top guy in here, and let's get these players ready to go, because this franchise cannot afford another year in the basement.
Well said, Pilsy. Well said. I think that the overall feeling is that there is going to have to be moves made if they want to reach the level that they believe they should be at, and fans believe is overdue for where they should be at. Coming soon. We'll have more on tomorrow's Locked On Senators. Thank you for joining us on this YouTube exclusive, reacting to GM Pierre Dorion's season-ending press conference. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.